is that nobody, like you said, it's invisible. Nobody can see it. And so the perceived amount of stress and anxiety that it caused me, that it caused my mom, and the going through the diagnosis and knowing that my mom was sitting there with a defibrillator, and that it was a constant thought in my mind. But because it's not visual, it's not a constant thought on other people's minds. And different activities.
So what is the advantages and disadvantages of having a diagnosis such as, this heart condition, the cardiac electrical disorder, or gluten allergy, or other food allergies you have that is invisible to the outside world? How does this impact how outsiders look at you, or how you perceive yourself, and the stigma that is attached to it, either by you or the people on the outside?
Yeah. What's really hard is that nobody, like you said, it's invisible. Nobody can see it. And so the perceived amount of stress and anxiety that it caused me, that it caused my mom, and the going through the diagnosis and knowing that my mom was sitting there with a defibrillator, and that it was a constant thought in my mind. But because it's not visual, it's not a constant thought on other people's minds. And different activities, we would do underwater training. And, if you started getting dizzy or like tingly feeling, my mind went to heart and went to what that could be in terms of my heart rhythm. And, we don't do a lot of that anymore these days. But in terms of the food allergies, like, it wasn't until 2011 that I discovered that I needed to be gluten-free and egg-free. And I had always tried, being an elite level athlete, to eat how I was supposed to. And much more textbook, 3 meals a day, 2 snacks, this many carbs, this many vegetables, this much protein. And it was all based on someone else's literature. And to really have it switched on its head and have it be about how food makes me feel. And to not be diagnosed with celiacs, but to know that when I eat gluten, I instantly feel swollen. I feel achy. I get migraine headaches. I get incredibly constipated. Like, it just seems to affect everything about me. And then I eat eggs and my stomach just inflates and feels like it's being stabbed, but yet it's not the normal anaphylactic response that gets classified as a food allergy. And so when I go to restaurants and I order food and I'm pressing about gluten and I'm pressing about eggs and the ingredients, and I get asked a lot, like, well, is this like more of the fad diet or is it celiac? And to have to try to make that distinction to people, like, do I just say it's celiac because that's the level that I treat it as? Or do I have to then try to justify in this gray area? And, when it's not anaphylactic, it's not, so it's hard when I even have to say that I don't have an egg allergy. I have an egg sensitivity. I tend to put emphasis and say I have a very extreme sensitivity to eggs. But it's always hard in that gray area of people think it's either a certain type of allergy and you have an EpiPen and there's a certain response to it, or it's just, you just don't like it, or, oh, it just makes you feel bad. And no, it's there's a lot more to it than that.
I think it's so important, and I'm very happy, as I've said a couple times now, that you're so open about talking about this, because even though for someone like me, even I'm very open about learning new perspectives and everybody's diagnosis and race and disabilities and whatnot. I had not even heard of it until 6 months ago, and didn't know how to spell it or anything, and so and it's also a hidden diagnosis. It's a hidden under the Americans with Disabilities Act, it's classified as a hidden disability. And so if people don't talk about it, then nobody's going to know. So my next question was, which isn't exactly relating to what I just said, but did you feel anger at not finding out sooner? How did you feel about having lived through so many years of this misdiagnosis? I mean, in a way, it kind of relates, because if people had talked about it more and there was more information in the media, you would have probably been diagnosed earlier.
I do get upset, especially having been to the emergency room 3 times. Not once, but 3 times with severe stomach pain. And each time being sent home with just this, I don't know, you're gassy diagnosis. And to be so frustrated that nothing was helping. And everything that I read and trying to do things right. And, we had taken out dairy because at the time I felt like people were talking about lactose intolerance. And so I would take cheese off of my omelets and wonder why I still felt so sick. And it's frustrating that I feel like stomach pain in particular is oftentimes dismissed without really diving into what the cause of it is. And I know that that's challenging because so many things affect people's stomach, with stress and workloads and food. And there's just a whole array of things, but that has to start being talked about and explored much more readily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.